Hello and welcome back to Whispering Noir. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy drifting into dark, chilling tales whispered through the shadows of Whispering Noir, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1. Choosing a faithful life is supposed to mean something when death finally comes for you. That was what I was taught. Avoid hatred, avoid sin, walk the path of goodness, help your fellow man, stay loyal to God, pray, tithe, sit in the pews, lower your head, raise your voice, live cleanly. And when the black waves of death rise over you, something bright will be waiting on the other side. That was the promise. I believed it for most of my life. Human beings spend their short years sitting beside one another in churches, praising a power higher than anything they can fully understand. They kneel, they sing, they give their money, they bow their heads and whisper the right words. And after doing all of that, many of them begin to believe they have earned the right to judge everyone else. I know that because I was one of them. I sat in those pews. I listened to sermons about mercy while quietly hating people who were different from me. I spoke about love while looking down on anyone who did not live the way I thought they should. I believed myself noble because I prayed, because I donated, because I knew the verses and bowed at the correct moments. My parents raised me that way. They told me we were better because we gave ourselves to the Father who created us. They told me it was our duty to save others, even when those others didn't want saving. I grew up thinking my faith made me good, and because I believed I was good, I excused every cruel thought that passed through me. So when I closed my eyes for the final time, I expected heaven, not hoped for it. Expected it, I expected light, music, warmth, the presence of God. I expected forgiveness to rush over me like clean water, washing away whatever stains I had collected during my life. Instead, I woke in darkness. Limestone walls towered around me. Wooden torches burned from iron brackets, casting uneven orange light along the stone. The air smelled of burning animal fat, hot oil, and something older underneath, a dry, untouched must that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. I was lying on the floor on top of a heap of ancient wrappings. They crunched beneath me when I moved. They were brittle, stiff with age, and coated in a black, sticky resin that smeared across my skin. I pushed myself upright, confused and sick with fear. The walls were covered in hieroglyphs. The carvings had been cut deep into the rock, and faded paint still clung to them in patches. Some figures had animal heads and human bodies. Some carried scales, knives, feathers, and strange staffs. I stared at them, desperate to understand, but the meanings slipped away from me. My mind felt full of static. I remembered my life clearly. I remembered my name, my church, my wife, my parents, my pride. But the last moments before waking, there came back slowly, like air leaking from a damaged balloon. There had been a road. Speed, a scream of metal, a flash of pain. Then nothing. I stood carefully. The wrappings crackled under my feet. No voice welcomed me. No angel appeared. No golden gate opened. With nothing else to do, I walked. The chamber led into a descending hallway, also lined with carvings I could not read. The deeper I went, the warmer the air became. Heat pressed through the stone walls and slid over my skin. My breath caught in my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, terrified that I would open them and see the iron gates of hell standing ahead of me. But instead, I saw a figure. It stood at the end of the passage on a small wooden boat. "Hello," I called. My voice was dry and cracked. It echoed strangely off the limestone. The figure turned toward me. It wore white cloth and shining gold. Its body was shaped like a man's, but its head was not human. It had the head of a ram. The creature said nothing. It simply raised one hand and beckoned me toward the boat. I froze. The ram's eyes were dark and ancient. They did not look cruel, but they did not look kind either. They looked through me, as if my skin and name and memories were only thin coverings over something much easier to judge. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. So I stepped onto the boat. It was a small wooden barge with a low, flat deck and a curved rear. Reeds were woven along its sides, and a small walled shelter stood near the middle, perhaps the ferryman's quarters. The ram-headed figure held a steering oar over the edge of the vessel. There was nothing beneath us. No water, no earth, only empty air. Yet the boat floated, the deck creaked beneath my feet as the ferryman pushed us away from the wooden dock. We drifted forward, carried by a current I could not see. At first, what I saw below us gave me hope. A vast field stretched beneath the boat, filled with golden wheat and reeds. Rivers of fresh water wound through it, bright and clean. People lay peacefully in the grass. Others walked along the banks or swam in the clear streams. Some looked up and waved. Soft light touched everything, warm and beautiful, even though above us there was only a cave ceiling. For a moment, calm washed over me. Maybe this was not hell. Maybe I had only entered some strange passage toward heaven. Then I looked behind us. Beyond the fields was an ocean of fire. Liquid flames rolled and crashed like water. Smoke poured upward in thick black columns. Streams of fire branched away from the main burning sea and circled the edges of the peaceful land. The people in the fields did not seem to notice, but others did. Desperate souls clawed at the fiery shores, trying to pull themselves free. Baboons guarded the banks, shrieking and beating them back into the burning depths. The screams rose around us, endless and terrible. A verse from Revelation entered my mind, as clearly as if someone had whispered it into my ear. The cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic, the idolaters, and all liars will be cast into the lake of burning sulfur. The second death. My body shook. I remembered I had died. A car accident, metal folding inward, glass cutting my face, the taste of blood. In those final moments, I had sent out one last prayer, certain that it would carry me into paradise. But this was not the paradise I had been promised. I turned to the ferryman, tears already burning in my eyes. "Please," I said, "tell me, is this hell? What sins did I commit to deserve this?" He stared forward, guiding the boat deeper into that impossible realm. Ahead, a ruined temple rose from the glowing distance. It had once been a grand pyramid or something like one, but age and neglect had broken it badly. One side had caved in, exposing treasures that no longer shone and bodies wrapped in linen in different stages of decay. Marble statues of old pharaohs stood around it, some still tall and proud, others crumbling into dust. A wooden dock waited near the entrance. The boat touched it softly. The ferryman lifted his oar and gestured for me to leave. I stepped onto the groaning planks and turned back to him. His hand remained outstretched. Somehow, without knowing why, I reached into my pocket and found coins there. Silver and copper. I placed them in his palm and bowed my head. "Thank you," I said. When I looked up, he had already pushed away, drifting silently into the realm below. I watched him go until the darkness swallowed him. Then I faced the temple. With a shaking breath, I stepped inside. The inner chamber looked similar to the place where I had awakened, but the walls here were brighter. The carvings were painted in magnificent colors, so fresh they looked wet, as if the artist had just finished them moments earlier. Torches burned with unnatural brightness, filling the room with painful gold light. A wooden door stood ahead of me. It looked old and plain against the decorated stone, splintered and hardened by time. Guarding it was a black dog. It had no fur. Its skin was smooth and dark, stretched tightly over lean muscle. It watched me with intelligent eyes, then barked once and turned its head toward a scale beside the door. On one side of the scale sat a lump of pulsing red meat, a heart. My hand moved to my chest. Under my shirt, I felt a hollow space where my own heart should have been. Fear filled me as I looked at the other side of the scale. A single feather rested there. The heart weighed far heavier. The dog barked again. I looked above the door and saw a word carved into the stone. Cowardice. Memories flashed through me. The door opened inward by itself. Beyond it, I heard soft crying. I wanted to turn away. I wanted to run back to the dock and throw myself into one of the burning rivers rather than step through that door. But there was no choice. Not really. I closed my eyes and tried to pray. No answer came. So I stepped through. Suddenly, I was standing on the back porch of my friend Matthew's house. Under my right arm was a bundle of Bibles and sermon notes. My left hand was raised to knock. I knew this day. Matthew and his wife Joan had missed Wednesday service, claiming they were sick. I had promised to bring them my notes and lead a small Bible study if they felt up to it. I remembered standing there ready to knock. The door was slightly open. From inside, Joan was crying. I looked through the window. Matthew stood over her, half an empty bottle hung from one hand. With the other, he struck her. Again and again. I remembered this moment from life. I had seen it. And I had left. I had gone home and prayed for God to heal their marriage. I prayed for hours. I told myself prayer was action. I told myself it was not my place to interfere. At the next Sunday service, I could not look at Matthew, and Joan would not look at me. Purple bruises showed through her makeup. At the time, I did not know she had seen me leave through the window. Now I saw her eyes on me. Back then, she had looked at me like I was her rescue. And I had been too much of a coward to become one. This time, the Bibles slipped from under my arm and fell to the porch. I shoved the door open. Rage moved through me. My hands acted before my mind did. I grabbed Matthew by the shoulders and spun him around. But the face that turned toward me was not Matthew's. It was a screaming baboon. Heat poured from its rotting mouth. Its teeth were long and broken. Its eyes were wild with accusation. Fear tried to stop me. This time, I did not let it. I punched it. My fist smashed into its face. Teeth scraped across my knuckles. We fell to the floor together. Joan faded from the room, and the house dissolved into darkness, but I kept hitting the creature again and again. Blood and spittle flew. Its screams turned to wet, choking sounds. I did not stop until the thing beneath me went still. A wave of heat burst from its body. Then I was back in a limestone chamber. The black dog stood before another door. This time, the feather and my heart were closer to balance. Only slightly. But enough. The dog now stood on its hind legs. Gold jewelry hung from its neck and wrists, similar to the ornaments worn by the ferrymen. It did not speak. It simply pointed its long black nose toward the next door. Above the stone was a new word. Unbelieving. I looked down at my hands. They were stained red, torn open by the baboon's teeth. I had no idea what waited behind the next door, but I had seen the scale move. This time, there was no memory waiting. Only a platform high above the ocean of fire. Another platform stood across a wide gap. Between them hung a thin line, loose and trembling. It was the only path across. On both sides, rows of baboons screamed and threw foul-smelling muck at each other. One stood near the far door, larger than the rest, with splintered teeth and bleeding gums. It watched me as if it had been waiting. Below, in the lake of fire, something enormous moved. A crocodile the size of a building surfaced beneath me. Its jaws opened, snapping upward, eager to drag me into the flames. All my life I had claimed to believe, but my belief had never truly been tested. I had believed in God, yes, but not in courage, not in truth. Not in myself. My faith had often been an excuse to avoid hard choices. Now there was no sermon to hide behind, no congregation, no verse to quote, only the line, the fire, and the door beyond. I stepped back. Then I ran. I jumped for the line and caught it with both hands. Under my weight, it sagged violently. I slid downward toward the crocodile's open mouth. The heat from below blasted against my legs, and for one terrible moment, I accepted that I would fall. Then the line caught. The crocodile's jaws snapped shut only feet beneath me. The baboons went silent. My arms screamed as I pulled myself forward. Every movement sent burning pain through my muscles. I had never been strong in life. My body had been soft from comfort, from easy living, from believing my soul mattered more than what my hands did. Now those hands were all I had. The line cut into my palms. Blood made it slick. The more I moved, the lower it sagged. I knew I could slip at any moment. So I looked ahead and measured the distance to the platform. It was too far. But too far was all I had. I began to swing, back and forth, back and forth. The crocodile rose again beneath me. I swung harder. Then I let go. My shoulders slammed into the edge of the limestone platform. Pain exploded through my arm, but my fingers found purchase. I pulled myself up, gasping. The baboons erupted into wild cries. Not anger, celebration. The injured baboon near the door watched me for a moment, then pushed the door open. I stepped through. The next chamber was similar to the others, but the dog had grown into something else. A towering man with the head of a black dog stood guard before the final door. Gold shone around his neck and arms. In one hand, he held my heart. He looked down at me and spoke for the first time. "This is your final test." That was all. He stepped aside. Above the open doorway, a word was carved into the stone. Idolatry. The dog-headed man approached and shoved the heavy heart into the hollow space in my chest. Pain burst through me. Then he gripped my shoulder and forced me into the final doorway. Memories poured into me. I woke in my own bed on the last day I was alive. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was 2 a.m. The message was from my accomplice. We had been stealing money from the church. For months, we had emptied collection boxes on Sunday nights. I told myself I deserved it. I told myself the church had enough. I told myself I had given so much of my life to faith that taking a little back was not truly wrong. But the truth was simpler. I worshipped money, not God. Money, that was my idol. My body moved without my control. I rose from bed, whispered goodbye to my sleeping wife, and left a note in case she woke. Then I drove to the church. My accomplice parked nearby too, and together we entered in the dark. We were careless that night, too confident. We forgot the alarm inside the parish. We went straight for the collection boxes. We cracked one open. Then the pastor's office light flickered. The door opened. He stepped out holding a hunting rifle. The barrel aimed directly at us. I could have confessed. I could have dropped the money and begged forgiveness. I could have accepted the consequences of my sin. Instead, I saw the silver flash of a knife in my accomplice's hand, and I made my choice. I shoved him toward the pastor. The rifle fired. The sound shattered the church. I ran. I grabbed the money and fled, leaving both men behind me. Outside, I sprinted to my car. Stolen bills scattered across the passenger seat as I sped away. I kept my headlights off for a quick escape. That was why I didn't see the figure outside. The pastor, wounded but alive, raised the rifle and aimed at my tires. A thunderous shot rang out. At 70 miles per hour, my car buckled. It flipped. The memory ended in screaming metal. Then my eyes opened to a bright landscape of burning sand. A storm howled around me. Hot grains cut against my skin like glass. Ahead stood the ram-headed ferryman and the dog-headed judge. Between them was the scale. A third figure stood beside them. He was dressed in white, and his skin was blue like the daytime sky. The dog-headed man raised his hand. My heart ripped from my chest. I screamed as it floated through the sandstorm, sliced by each burning grain. "Please," I sobbed. "Please, I repent." The words tasted small. After everything I had done, begging for paradise felt shameful. I thought of Joan. I thought of Matthew. I thought of the church money. I thought of the man I pushed toward death so I could save myself. My heart landed wetly on the scale. It began to tip against the feather. The blue-skinned man spoke. The weight must remain equal. The sand beneath me softened. I began to sink. At first, I panicked. I clawed at the air, but there was nothing to hold. The scale groaned, swaying slowly, until my heart and the feather settled into balance. The sand rose around my waist, then my chest, then my throat. Silence surrounded me as it closed over my head. For the first time since waking in that stone place, I felt peace. Not forgiveness, not heaven, peace. Then red and blue lights flashed against my eyelids. I opened my eyes. I was hanging upside down in my car. Blood ran across my face and dripped onto the stolen money scattered around me. The crucifix hanging from my rearview mirror swung gently, wrapped in a beaded rosary. Broken glass glittered everywhere. My body was held in place only by the seatbelt. I was alive. Barely. Pain filled every part of me. Bones had broken inside my body. Blood had pooled in my throat, and I coughed it out in thick, wet bursts. Voices called from outside, muffled and distant. Emergency lights painted the wreckage red and blue. I closed my eyes out of habit. I tried to repent again, but nothing answered, because I had already been heard, not by the God I claimed to love while serving myself, by the figures beyond death, by the scale, by the feather, by the truth of what I had done. So I hung there in the wreckage, surrounded by stolen money, pain, sirens, and shame. The crucified figure on the rosary swayed in front of me, watching silently from the mirror. And for the first time in my life, I understood judgment. Story 2. That's not possible, I said. It is. The moment his tawiz is removed, he starts to change, my friend replied. Tell me more. I want to know. I love scary stories. I will, he said, but I'm starving. I'll grab us something to eat. Nobody was home that day, which meant the house was quiet in that comfortable way it only gets when you're alone and the day feels wide open. I'd called my neighbor over because I was bored, and he was the kind of friend who always had some story going on, something weird in the family, something mysterious in the neighborhood, some rumor that sounded too dramatic to be true. When he arrived, he seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. He didn't sit the way he normally did. He kept checking his phone and looking toward the window like he was waiting on time to pass. I asked what was up, and he casually said his family was planning to go to a shrine later. He used the word mazar, the way people do when they mean a place that isn't just a building, but something with history and fear and hope tied into it. I asked why. He hesitated, like he'd said too much already. Then, like he decided there was no point hiding it, he told me the reason. Not in a dramatic way, more like he was admitting something that had become normal for him. It's for my brother, he said. He needs it. I leaned forward without even thinking. Needs it for what? He picked up one of the biscuits I'd put out and started eating like he didn't care how it sounded. It's complicated, he said, around a crunch. He's fine most of the time, but when his tawiz comes off, he changes. I stared at him. A tawiz? Like an amulet? He nodded like that was the simplest thing in the world. Yeah, if it's removed, he doesn't stay the same. I tried to laugh, but it came out uneven. That's not possible. The moment it's removed, he starts to change. I should have left it there. I should have been the normal friend who says that's crazy and then changes the topic. But I didn't. I've always been the kind of person who leans toward the scary story instead of away from it. The kind of person who wants details even when the details make your skin crawl. Tell me more, I said. I want to know. I love scary stories. He rolled his eyes in a way that looked annoyed, but I could tell he liked being asked. I will, he said, but I'm starving. So I went into the kitchen and put together whatever I could find quickly. Biscuits, some snacks, tea. When I brought it back, he ate like he'd been holding back all day, and once he had food in him, he started talking more freely. When did all this start, I asked. He chewed and thought for a second, then said, It started after my cousin died. I didn't expect that. The tone changed just enough that I stopped smiling. Your cousin? He nodded, still eating, eyes down. He was sick all the time, like constantly ill. Doctors couldn't fix it. People tried everything. Then he died. And after that, your brother became like this? Yeah, he said softly. After my cousin passed away, my brother started acting strange. Not right away. It was gradual. I'd seen him around. He seemed normal to me. Quiet, polite, the type who didn't talk much. I'd never gotten a bad feeling. I'd never once thought, possessed. I didn't even know if I believed in that kind of thing. But he seems fine, I said. I've never felt like he was, I don't know, possessed. My friend raised his eyebrows like I'd said something naive. He took another bite and swallowed. Yeah, because you've only seen him during normal times. At night, it's different. Different how? He leaned back, looking suddenly serious. Sometimes when he recites the Quran, tears start streaming down his face. Not like emotional tears, like his eyes are just pouring. And when he offers namaz, his whole body shakes, like violent shaking. That made my stomach tighten, but it also lit up that curious, reckless part of my brain. Fear and excitement at the same time. The kind of feeling you get when you're about to watch something you know you shouldn't. Now you're scaring me and exciting me at the same time, I admitted. And it came out more honest than I meant. If I'm being real with you, I want to see it. He finished his snack, stood up abruptly, and brushed crumbs off his hands. I'm heading home. My pulse jumped. Wait, where are you going? Is your brother at home? He shook his head quickly, already moving toward the door. No, he isn't. Something about his speed made me suspicious, like he was trying to leave before he said something else. I followed him anyway. Wait, I'm coming too. He stopped at the doorway and looked at me like he was deciding if bringing me along was a mistake. No, he said at first, then exhaled. Actually, fine. Come, but don't do anything stupid. I won't, I promised, even though I already knew I couldn't guarantee that. I locked up my house and we walked to his place. It wasn't far, just a few minutes down the street. The whole time he was quiet. He didn't keep telling the story. He didn't build suspense. He just walked like he wanted it over with. When we got inside, his home was dim and cool, the kind of quiet you get in houses where people keep the TV off and let the air sit still. Somewhere deeper inside, I could hear a low, steady voice reciting, not loud, not dramatic, calm. My friend gestured toward the living area, and I saw his brother sitting there with a book open in his hands reciting the Quran. I expected something obvious right away. Weird movements, a strange expression, anything that would prove my friend wasn't exaggerating. But his brother looked normal. He was just reading. I sat down closer than I probably should have, because I wanted to watch his face. His eyes moved over the page. His lips formed the words in a steady rhythm. His posture was upright and calm. He's just reading, I whispered, almost disappointed. My friend sat down on the sofa a little farther back. He didn't whisper back. He just said, look closely. Look at his eyes. I stared harder, and for a few seconds I still saw nothing. Then his brother yawned, blinked, and kept reciting. And the tears started. At first, they were just a shine in the corners of his eyes. Then they built up and rolled down his cheeks, steady and quiet, as if his eyes had turned into leaking taps. His face didn't change much. He didn't sob. He didn't wipe them away. He just kept reciting while tears ran down like it was normal. I see it, I whispered, too loud. I see the tears. My friend didn't look impressed. Told you. Then his brother closed the book, set it aside carefully, and stood up. He's going to pray now, I said, like I was narrating, because talking made me feel less nervous. Now watch how he trembles, my friend replied. His brother began namaz. At first, everything looked normal. The movements, the posture, the quiet focus. But then his shoulders started to twitch. His arms shook slightly, and within seconds his whole body was trembling so hard it looked unnatural. Not a small shake, not a nervous vibration. It was intense, like every muscle was firing at once, like something inside him was forcing motion through him. At the same time, my friend suddenly looked uncomfortable. He rubbed his face and said he felt hot. He reached up and switched on the ceiling fan. "It's freezing," I whispered. "Why did you turn the fan on?" He didn't answer. He just pointed. His brother's body was shaking violently now, almost vibrating. It wasn't the kind of shaking you see when someone is cold. It looked like something you'd see during a seizure, except he was still moving through the prayer. "What is happening to him?" I asked, breathless. "He always does this," my friend said, like it was routine. Like you'd asked why the sky was blue. When the prayer ended, his brother sat back down on the sofa. The shaking stopped the way it had started. Too clean, too sudden. He looked exhausted, like he'd run a long distance, but his expression remained controlled. My curiosity pushed me forward. I started asking questions the way you do when you're trying to force a story into something logical. "Is it true?" I asked him directly. "Did your cousin really die from an illness?" His head snapped toward me, eyes sharp. "Who told you that?" My throat tightened. I hadn't expected the anger. I just heard it somewhere." He stared at me a moment longer than felt normal, then said, slow and careful, "Yes, it happened." I didn't know what to say after that. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. That's when my friend called his brother from the other room, like he needed him for something. The brother got up and went with him. I stood up too, wanting to follow, but my friend turned back and blocked me with his arm. "Just stay here," he said. "Let my brother come. It's a 1-minute job." I sat back down in the hall area trying to act casual, but my legs felt tense, ready to move. From the other room, I could hear their voices. At first, it sounded like quick talking. Then it sharpened into an argument. Not loud enough to make out every word, but intense enough that you could hear anger in it, the kind of argument that has been waiting under the surface for a long time. My stomach kept tightening, tighter and tighter, and my mind kept jumping between possibilities. Was my friend being stupid? Was he provoking him? Was he actually removing the Tawiz right now just to show me? Then the room went quiet for a second, and suddenly they stepped back out. My friend was standing slightly in front of his brother. His hand was clenched into a fist. He opened it slowly, like he was showing me proof of something. In his palm was the Tawiz. His brother looked at me, not like a normal person looks at someone sitting in their living room. This wasn't annoyance or embarrassment. It was rage, pure and focused, like I was the reason for everything wrong in his body. Then his arms curled inward in a way that didn't look human. His elbows bent sharply and his posture changed, like his bones didn't sit right anymore. His shoulders rose, his neck stiffened, his face tightened. And he screamed, but the sound that came out wasn't the voice I'd heard reciting. It was deeper and harsher, like it came from somewhere lower than lungs. "You wanted to see me, didn't you? Now look." The veins in his neck bulged, thick and ugly, and he lunged straight toward me. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember deciding to run. My body just moved. My friend scrambled backward into his room, and suddenly the lights cut out, like someone had flipped the switch or yanked the power. The hall went dark. My skin went ice cold. I felt something brush close. His hand, cold enough that I could feel it without even being sure it touched me. I bolted for the door. I fumbled with the lock, hands shaking so badly I almost couldn't twist it. The moment it opened, I stumbled outside into the night air like I'd been pushed out of a nightmare. I ran a few steps down the walkway before I realized something. I didn't hear pursuit. I didn't hear another scream. Instead, from inside the house, I heard laughter. Not angry laughter. Hysterical laughter, like two people who couldn't breathe because they were laughing so hard. Both of them, my friend and his brother, laughing together in the dark, like this had been planned like I'd walked right into it the moment I said I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I stood there under the porch light, chest heaving, trying to convince my heart to slow down while the laughter kept spilling out from the house. And even after I realized it was a prank, after my brain finally caught up and told me I wasn't about to die, I still couldn't shake one thing. During that moment when his brother lunged, when his arms bent wrong and his voice dropped into something that didn't sound human at all, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like something real had looked straight at me through him. And that's why, years later, I still don't like being in a room where someone can turn the lights off whenever they want. Story 3. I have a question for you. It sounds simple, but you need to think about it before you keep reading, because it's the only way any of what I'm about to tell you will make sense. Is an object defined by what it was made for, or is its purpose defined by what it ends up doing? Let me give you an example. Everyone has used a fork, right? You use it for eggs, chicken, broccoli, whatever. But have you ever used a fork as a letter opener? Most people haven't. Still, it would work. You could tear open an envelope with it easily. So what does that mean? Is a fork forever only a tool for eating because that was the original intention? Or can a new need opening a letter turn that fork into something else in that moment? Yeah, it sounds like word games, but it matters. Because once you accept that one object can serve more than one purpose, you start to see how much you can learn about something larger by looking at the pieces it's made of. A door is meant to allow entrance. Walls are meant to define space and keep things out. A roof is meant to cover. Windows are meant to allow light and let you see. So if a house is missing one of those things, if it has walls and windows and a roof but no door, what does that tell you about the house as a whole? That it doesn't want to be protected? That it doesn't want to see? Or if it has no door, does that mean it does not want to be entered at all? I'm not going to put my name on the internet. You can call me Z. And there's a house out in the middle of nowhere with no doors. I've been doing a lot of urban exploring recently. If I'm honest, it doesn't even appeal to me. I think it's reckless and stupid for a small adrenaline rush. That's just me. My friends, though, act like exploring abandoned places is the best thing on Earth. Ever since we turned 18, they've been obsessed. Buying gear, trading locations, talking about the next big spot like they're chasing some high. I go along because I always go along. That's who I've been for most of my life. I don't really know how to push back. I don't like arguments. I don't like being the person who ruins plans. And I'd rather be anywhere than at home. I grew up with parents who made every decision for me. The big decisions and the small ones. Who I could date, where I could go, when I had to be home, what I should eat, what I should care about. I learned early that it was easier to nod and take it than to fight and get punished for it. For a long time, I told myself it would change when I became an adult. I really believed that. I thought when I hit 18, they'd loosen up, back off, finally let me steer my own life. I was wrong. The first time I suggested doing something differently than what they'd decided, they blew up. They chewed me out like I'd committed some unforgivable betrayal. They cursed at me. They threatened to kick me out over something stupid, over buying a different kind of ice. That's how fragile their control was. That's how badly they needed me to stay in the shape they'd made. After that, I stopped trying. It wasn't worth the stress. It wasn't worth being talked to like dirt. Instead, I started staying away, not confronting them, not fighting, just not being there. I'd come home to sleep and leave again. I avoided conversations by avoiding rooms. I made myself a ghost in my own house. That only made them worse. It became a regular thing to get nasty texts from one of them. Do you even love us anymore? It's a shame our own son hates his family. At first, it made me angry. Then it made me sad. Then it made me depressed. And eventually, it stopped making me feel anything at all. Even when I wasn't around, they still controlled my life. They picked the college I was supposed to go to, even though I didn't want college. They decided where I could work and who I could work with. They decided where I was allowed to be and when, even though it had nothing to do with them. I didn't resist. I just let it happen. I let them play with my life, and I swallowed the resentment because fighting felt pointless. That's important to understand, because it explains why I ended up in that field. I got the group chat message early Saturday morning, before sunrise. I am not an early riser. I usually sleep through everything. But my phone buzzed nonstop for 5 straight minutes, and I finally groaned and grabbed it. X, one of my friends, had texted, "Meet at my place in an hour. Found a new spot." This one is different. He always said that. Every new location was different, crazy, unlike anything. Most of the time, it meant the place had a broken staircase or a creepy basement, and that was it. Still, I didn't want to sit in my parents' house all day. And I didn't have the energy to argue with anyone, including my friends. So I replied that I'd be there. An hour later, I was in X's car with the rest of them, listening to him talk like he'd discovered treasure. It's in the middle of nowhere. He said, "Just a house sitting in a field. 2 stories, 2 windows, no doors." That part did catch my attention. I'll admit it. No doors wasn't just a dramatic way to describe a boarded-up entrance. It was specific. Then, because he couldn't help himself, X started layering on a ghost story. He claimed only 2 people had ever dared to enter the house with no doors, and neither one had returned. It sounded like complete bullshit, like something he'd read online and decided to make part of the experience. But I didn't care. I just wanted the day to pass without my parents in my face. When we finally got there, the house was exactly as he'd described. It sat alone in a wide-open field of tall grass. No trees close by. No nearby buildings. No road visible from where we parked. Just a clean stretch of emptiness and this one structure sitting in it like it had been placed there on purpose. The condition of it was what really threw me. Most abandoned places look like time has chewed on them. Broken boards, missing shingles, rusted nails, sagging roofs. This house looked clean. Not brand new, but preserved. Like the weather hadn't touched it. Like years hadn't passed at all. And yes, no doors. Not boarded up. Not hidden behind overgrowth. There was simply no door. Just walls where a door should have been. We stood there longer than I expected. All of us, quiet, staring at it. It's hard to describe what it felt like. There was an aura to it, and I know that sounds cheesy, but it's the closest word I have. It pulled at you. It made you want to get closer, and at the same time, it made you feel an intense fear, the kind that sits deep in your stomach and makes your skin cold. Mesmerized and scared, both at once. After a few minutes, the group started whispering. Should we really do this? Maybe we should just leave. People brought up X's story about the 2 who never came back. Then teenage pride took over, like it always does. It turned into a stupid contest. Who was brave and who was a little bitch? No one actually wanted to go in, but nobody wanted to admit it first. Someone suggested drawing sticks. I remember that moment clearly because it felt like my whole life in one small scene. A group deciding what I was going to do. And me too tired to fight them. Y pulled the shortest stick. He immediately pointed at me. "Z will do it," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This stuff doesn't scare him. It scared the hell out of me. But everyone started murmuring agreement like it was already decided. "Yeah, come on, Z." I opened my mouth to argue. I even felt the argument forming. But my lungs didn't cooperate. My body did what it always did when someone pushed me. It shut down. I nodded. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to fight. Funny how even outside my parents' control, I still wasn't making my own choices. There was only one way in, a window on the 1st floor. I took my shoe and smashed it. Glass sprayed inward, the sound cracked through the empty field. For a second, all of us froze like we expected an alarm to go off or something to answer back. Nothing did. I carefully climbed in, avoiding the broken glass as best I could. I turned back, expecting at least one of them to follow. X waved from outside like I'd just volunteered for a simple chore. "Check it out," he called. "Make sure it's not dangerous." I should have walked right back out then. I should have told them to go to hell and climbed back out the window and left. But I didn't. I scratched the back of my head, took a breath, and stepped deeper into the house with no doors. Inside, it looked like an old suburban home. Polished wood floors, a large dining area, cream-colored walls, a wide staircase near the far window leading up to the second floor. It felt abandoned, but not in the way abandoned houses usually feel. There was no dust thick on the floor, no spider webs in the corners, no graffiti, no broken furniture, no smell of mold. It looked like someone still lived here, like they just stepped out. That made my stomach tighten because the place was in the middle of a field with no road and no door. Still, I told myself to get it over with. A quick look around, then leave. Prove it was boring. I started walking, and that's when I noticed something near the broken window. Where the glass had scattered across the floor, there were black tendrils creeping outward. At first, I thought they were vines, like some plant had started growing in through the cracks. But they weren't growing from the glass. They were growing under it, spreading out from where the shards had hit the wood. Strange, I muttered, because my brain wanted the comfort of a normal word. I nudged a shard with my shoe and watched the black growth expand in a thin line, like it was reacting to movement. My instinct screamed at me to leave. Instead, I went upstairs. Up there, the house changed. The floors were carpeted, the walls were painted a dark blue. The air felt cooler, heavier. And the layout, this is the part that made my mouth go dry. It was oddly similar to my own home. There was a hallway, and at the end of it, a single closed door. I stopped and stared at it. Then I told myself, again, I didn't need to be here. I could turn around. I could climb back out. I could pretend I hadn't seen anything. I turned toward the railing to look down at the first floor. The black growth near the broken window had spread. It was bigger now, thicker, like rot blooming through wood. And it wasn't just by the window anymore. Everywhere I'd walked, there were footprints, outlined in that same black creeping substance, like it was following me, remembering me. "Fuck," I whispered. "Time to leave." That's when the light came. A warm orange glow spilled across my back and across the wall in front of me, like a lamp had been turned on behind the closed door at the end of the hall. I froze. The house had no power. I'd checked the light switches downstairs out of habit. Nothing worked. The only light should have been the 2 downstairs windows. And yet there it was, warm, steady light leaking from under that door. Curiosity pulled on me like a hook. How was there light? What was in there? Who was in there? You know the saying about curiosity and the cat. I opened the door anyway. And I almost fell over. I was staring into my bedroom, not a similar room, not a kind of like it room. My bedroom. The same bed, the same posters, the same dresser, the same junk on the floor, down to the bag of chips I'd eaten for breakfast sitting crumpled in my trash like it had been there all morning. My brain couldn't process it. I stepped in like a sleepwalker, touching things, opening drawers, trying to find proof it was fake. Nothing was fake. The room smelled like my room. The air felt like my house. What the fuck? I breathed and my voice sounded too loud in that space. I opened the door leading out of my room. It was my house, the hallway, the living room, the kitchen, everything. But it didn't fit. That thought hit me like ice water. From the outside, the upper floor of that strange house was not big enough to contain an entire copy of my home. It made no sense. And then I saw it. Grass. At first, it was just a few thin blades pushing up through the carpet in the hallway. The closer I got to my parents' bedroom, the thicker it became. When I looked back, I realized it hadn't appeared suddenly. It had been there the whole time, quietly growing denser with every step. I pushed open the door to my parents' room. Nature had taken it. Grass covered the floor so thick I couldn't see the carpet. Moss climbed the walls in spreading sheets. The ceiling looked like it was sprouting leaves, as if branches were trying to push through from above. and the closet door was wide open. It wasn't just open. It felt like it wanted me to notice, like it was inviting me. I took one step into the room. The moment my foot touched the grass, the black rot spilled out from under me. It spread across the room like a disease moving through a body. Wherever it touched, the green died instantly. Leaves fell from above, shriveled and black before they even hit the ground. My pulse hammered. The fear in me finally made sense. I wasn't just in a house. I was contaminating it. I should have turned around then. I knew it. I felt it. It was obvious this place was not meant for me. It was not meant to be entered. It was not meant to be disturbed. But the closet breathed a breeze, a gentle push of air from the darkness beyond the open door, like the space behind it was deeper than it should be. And curiosity again won. I walked through the closet. Everything broke. On the other side was an open field of grass, as bright and green as the one outside the house, stretching out farther than I could see. There were no walls, no ceiling, no sky I could understand, just distance and wind and endless green. Logic vanished. My mind tried to grab onto anything familiar and found nothing. The rot followed me. It branched out from my feet like a spiderweb of death, racing across the grass, killing everything it touched. Wherever I stepped, the field died behind me in black lines. The guilt hit me hard then, cutting through panic. Stop moving. Stop destroying this. And for a second, the reasonable part of me won. I froze, standing still, trying to hold my breath like I could pause the rot by pausing myself. That's when I heard it, the worst sound I've ever heard in my life. It was like a man crying for help, a dog howling in pain, a cat hissing, a bird cawing, like every living creature's fear stitched into one noise and forced out through one throat. Then the ground shook. About 50 yards away, at the edge where the rot stopped spreading, the dirt began to rise. Something pushed up from underneath, tearing at the earth, thrashing and jerking like it was trying to claw itself free. And the rot crawled up it as it emerged. The thing screamed and tore at its own body as the blackness climbed like it was trying to peel the rot off with its claws. Then it turned toward me. Its right leg was human from thigh to shin, but shredded by its own claw marks. The knee down was already being eaten, toes disappearing into black dust. The other leg was long and shaped like a goat's, warped and stretched, and the rot ran up it like a thick black vine. Its torso looked like it had once been a wolf's, but there was almost nothing left of it now. Its stomach and chest had been ripped open so badly that the rib cage stood out like a cage with strings of organs hanging loose. One arm was gone entirely, consumed, leaving only a sharpened bone sticking out like a weapon. The other arm was like a bird's, feathers falling away, claws chipping as it struck itself again and again. And its head was mostly bone. Antlers crowned it, and beneath them was a deer skull. It locked onto me, it stopped tearing itself apart, and dropped to all fours. Then it ran, even dying, even rotting. It ran with pure hate. I ran too. I sprinted back through the closet door and into my parents' bedroom, which was already collapsing into black. The moss and grass died around me. The ceiling sagged. I heard a crash behind me and knew the creature had followed. I tore through the hallway, through the kitchen, through the living room, back toward my room, and everything I passed turned wrong. The air felt thinner, the colors drained, the floors groaned like they wanted to give up. I burst through my bedroom doorway and, like waking from a nightmare, fell back into the original house. Behind me, the creature crashed into the room. I ran for the stairs. I got one step onto them. The wood gave way. The floor dropped out from under me, and I fell, crashing through splintered boards into a cramped storage space beneath the staircase. Pain shot through my leg. Dust filled my mouth. Above me, I heard the creature scrambling, its screams mixed with the sound of the house breaking apart. I told myself I was going to die there, not because I'd chosen to go in, but because I hadn't chosen to say no. The creature came down into the hollow space under the stairs like it was diving after prey. It struck my leg with what was left of its talons. By then, it was almost all bone. Its bird-like claws wrapped around my calf and ripped. I felt muscle tear. I felt something snap. The pain was so sharp my vision went white. It pulled me closer, dragging me like it wanted to finish the job before the rot finished it. I flailed, trying to grab anything. During the fall, a cabinet had popped open. Silverware spilled across the floor around me. My hand closed around the nearest thing. A fork. I stabbed it into the creature's arm, the place where feathers met bone, where a little flesh still clung. It shrieked, and where the fork pierced it, black rot erupted like a fountain. The rot swallowed it fast, consuming what remained, turning bone into dust. The immediate danger was gone, but the house wasn't. Everything rumbled. The walls cracked, the ceiling shifted like it was about to fold in. I tried to stand and couldn't. My leg felt ruined. I dragged myself, clawing across the floor toward the broken window where I'd come in. I screamed for help until my throat burned. Hands grabbed me from outside. My friends pulled me out just as the house finally gave up. It didn't collapse the way buildings usually do. Slowly, with debris and structure, it crumbled like paper burned too long. In seconds, it was dust. And then it was nothing. No foundation. No wreckage. No sign a house had ever been there at all. I lay in the grass, shaking, staring at the empty field where the house had stood, and guilt crawled through me under the pain. I did that. Curiosity didn't kill the cat. Curiosity dragged rot into something that had been hidden for a reason. Curiosity destroyed what I had no right to touch. My friends swarmed me with questions. I refused to answer most of them because I couldn't. I could barely breathe. All I could focus on was my leg. It hurt like it was split open. But when I told them how bad it was, they looked confused. They said they couldn't see anything. They acted like I was exaggerating or in shock. I made them take me to the ER anyway. The doctor examined my leg. They did x-rays. They asked if I'd taken anything. They looked at me like I was panicking over nothing. They found nothing wrong. No tear, no break, no wound. But I felt it. I still feel it. It never healed because there's nothing for them to treat. It's like the injury isn't fully physical, but it's real enough that I can't walk without a cane or crutches. Every step feels like pressure on a bruise that never fades. It's my consequence. Even if I didn't choose the house the way you choose a restaurant, I still walked in. I still crossed the line. I still let someone else's push become my action. After that day, something in me changed. I stopped letting other people decide my life and then expecting me to carry the damage. I stopped being the easy one, the agreeable one, the one who gets volunteered. I pushed back on my friends. I finally had the conversation with my parents that I'd been avoiding for years. It got ugly. I lost people. I didn't have friends for a while. I didn't have a home for a while either. But life is better now. I have friends who respect my choices. I have a girlfriend who loves me for who I am, not who I can be controlled into being. It hurt to get here, but I don't regret it. And yes, as insane as it sounds, it was because of that house. So I'll circle back to the question I asked you at the start. Was a fork ever meant to be a weapon? Probably not. But it saved my life anyway. It did what I needed it to do because I held it and decided what it was in that moment. And that's the point. It was never the object that controlled the purpose, and it was never the purpose that controlled the object. It was the person holding it. The person decides. For most of my life, I kept wondering if I was meant to be defined by my parents' plans, or by my friends' ideas, or by whoever was loudest in the room. But I finally understood something. I've been the one holding the fork the whole time. You are too. You hold all the power. Story 4. I still remember the smell of Nana's house. Cinnamon, old lace dust, and something faintly metallic that I could never name. It was not strong enough to complain about, but it was always there, hiding under the sweeter smells. If you stayed in the house long enough, you stopped noticing it. Then, if you went outside and came back in, it hit you again. That summer, I was 11 years old. It was 2004, and my cousin Stephen was 15. He was old enough to pretend he had grown out of childish games, but young enough that he still played them with me when nobody was watching. Nana's house was where the whole family ended up during the summer. Parents dropped kids off there when they had work, errands, church meetings, or simply needed a break. For Stephen and me, Nana's house was not just a house. It was a whole world. The living room was our kingdom. The hallway was a dangerous tunnel. The pantry was a supply depot. The old dining room table became a military base, a spaceship, a secret headquarters, or whatever we needed it to be that day. But our favorite thing was Nana's high-backed velvet chair. It sat near the front window, old and green and worn down at the arms. Nana called it her reading chair. We called it the Kronos class time machine. Stephen had come up with the name because he liked making things sound more official than they needed to be. When we sat in that chair, we were not two bored kids in an old house. We were explorers. We traveled between centuries. We visited the age of dinosaurs. We escaped future warriors. We built pillow forts to survive time storms. Stephen would sit in the chair, close his eyes, grab the wooden arms, and announce the year we were jumping to. I would shake the chair from behind while making explosion sounds. Then we would leap out and run through the house like reality had changed around us. Nana let us play as long as we didn't break anything. She would sit in the kitchen, humming softly, making lemonade or folding laundry. Sometimes she would smile at us from the doorway like she was remembering something. Sometimes she would tell us not to go upstairs without permission, especially not into the attic. That should have made us obey. Instead, it made the attic important. The attic door was at the end of the upstairs hallway. It was narrow, painted the same color as the wall, and easy to miss if you didn't know it was there. Nana kept it locked most of the time, but that summer the lock was old, and Stephen had learned how to pop it with a butter knife. He said we needed to explore it for the mission. I said Nana would be mad. He said all great explorers angered someone. That was enough for me. One afternoon, while Nana was asleep in her bedroom, Stephen and I crept upstairs. The whole house felt different when she wasn't moving around in it. The floorboards seemed louder. The walls seemed closer. Even the dust in the air looked like it was waiting to see what we would do. Stephen slid the butter knife into the attic lock and worked it back and forth. Click. The door opened. A stale smell rolled out. It was thick, old, and damp, like the inside of a box left in a basement for too long. Stephen grinned at me, trying to act brave. "Come on," he whispered. The attic stairs folded down with a groan. We climbed up slowly, one after the other. The heat hit us first. It was summer, and the attic held every bit of warmth the house collected. The air was heavy and dry. Dust stuck to my tongue. Thin light came through a small round window at the far end, turning everything gray and gold. The attic was packed with old things. Boxes of Christmas decorations, stacks of newspapers, broken lamps, picture frames, a rocking horse with one eye missing, moth-eaten quilts, clothes in plastic bags, a mirror covered by a sheet. We moved through it carefully, trying not to knock anything over. That was when we found the trunk. It sat behind a stack of quilts, half hidden in shadow. It was made of dark wood, heavy and old-looking, with black metal corners and a lock that had already rusted open. When Stephen dragged it forward, it made a deep scraping sound across the attic floor. "What do you think is in it?" I asked. "Treasure," he said. "It smells weird. Old treasure smells weird." He lifted the lid. The smell that came out was not treasure. It was damp earth, old cloth, and that same faint metallic odor I always noticed downstairs, only stronger. Inside the trunk was a black trench coat, folded carefully around something long and stiff. Stephen reached in and pulled the coat back. There was a ventriloquist dummy inside. We both froze. The dummy was African-American like us. His skin was dark brown and polished. His hair was jet black, combed perfectly into place. He wore a white shirt, a tiny black vest, and a little tie knotted so neatly it looked almost too perfect. His shoes were shiny. His hands rested over his stomach like he was sleeping in a coffin. He looked sophisticated. That was the first word that came to my mind. Then another word followed, wrong. His face was too still. His smile was too careful. His glass eyes looked too aware, even though they were closed. The corners of his mouth were carved upward in a polite expression, but somehow it felt mean. "Why would Nana have this?" Stephen whispered. I did not answer. I did not like being near it. Stephen reached toward the dummy's vest, then stopped. "You do it," he said. "No, come on. You're smaller. Your hands fit better." "That doesn't make sense." "You scared?" "Yes." He looked at me like he wanted to laugh, but he didn't. Maybe he was scared too. I reached toward the dummy slowly and slipped my fingers into the pocket of its tiny coat. My hand brushed against stiff paper. I pulled out a small yellowed business card. The front had one word printed in old black letters, Barnaby. I read it out loud. Barnaby. The attic seemed to grow quieter. Stephen leaned closer. "Is that his name?" I looked down at the dummy. "Is that your name?" I asked and immediately wished I hadn't. Nothing happened. Stephen snorted softly. I turned the card over. There were words written on the back. Strange words. Not English, at least. Not any English I knew. The letters curved and twisted across the card like someone had written them quickly but carefully. They looked old, important, dangerous. "What does it say?" Stephen asked. "I don't know." "Try reading it." "We shouldn't." "Why not?" "Because this is how people die in movies." Stephen rolled his eyes. "It's probably just some old magic trick thing." He began sounding out the first word. I joined him without thinking. That is the part I regret most. Our voices lined up. The strange words came easier than they should have. The syllables had a rhythm to them, almost like a... As we spoke, I felt them vibrate in my chest. The attic air thickened. The smell of damp earth became stronger. When we reached the final word, the dummy's eyes snapped open. Stephen and I screamed. The dummy sat up inside the trunk, its glassy brown eyes turned toward us. "Thank you for waking me," it rasped. Its jaw clicked with every word. Click. Thank. Click. You. Click. For waking me. Its voice sounded dry and old, like leaves scraping across a sidewalk. 12 years is a long time to sleep, Barnaby said. His smile widened. "I'm ready to cause some mayhem." Stephen grabbed my arm, and we scrambled backwards so fast I hit my shoulder against a stack of boxes. Something fell and shattered behind us. But we didn't look back. We climbed down the attic stairs, nearly stepping on each other, and ran down the hallway. Nana was coming out of her room when we crashed into her. What in the world? We both started talking at once. Dummy, trunk, card, words, eyes, talking. Barnaby. At first, Nana looked confused. Then the color drained from her face. She grabbed my shoulder so hard it hurt. "Tell me he's still in the trunk," she whispered. Neither of us answered. Her mouth tightened. "Tell me he is still in that trunk." We ran back to the attic with Nana behind us, moving faster than I had ever seen her move. The trunk was empty. The black trench coat lay crumpled inside it. The small attic window had been shattered outward. Broken glass glittered on the roof beyond the frame like jagged diamonds. A hot breeze pushed through the opening, stirring dust around our feet. Nana slumped against the doorframe. "Oh, Lord," she whispered. Stephen looked at me. I looked at the trunk. Nana took us downstairs and locked every door in the house. She pulled curtains closed. She made us sit at the kitchen table while she paced in front of us, one hand pressed against her mouth. Finally, she told us the truth. Barnaby was not a toy. He was not a normal dummy. Years before, Nana said our family had been involved in a feud with a man who practiced dark things. She did not explain exactly what that meant, She only said he had hated our family deeply, and when he lost whatever fight had been between them, he left Barnaby behind as a curse. A vessel, Nana called him. A thing made to hold malevolence. She said Barnaby grew stronger with every life he took. She said he had once caused suffering in ways people would never believe. Nana and some others had trapped him in that trunk 12 years earlier and sealed him with the words on the card. "You read the wrong side," she said, voice trembling. "Lord help us, you read the waking side." I started crying then. Stephen did not cry, but his face looked gray. "What do we do?" he asked. "We find him before he hurts someone," Nana said. We spent the next few hours in Nana's old Buick, driving through the neighborhood. Nana kept one hand on the wheel and the other wrapped around a small Bible. Stephen and I sat in the back seat staring out the windows. Every trash can looked like it might move. Every shadow under a porch looked like it might contain a tiny man in a trench coat. But the streets were empty. No Barnaby, no screams, no sign of anything wrong. By the time we circled back toward Nana's house, the sun had started to sink. The sky was orange behind the rooftops. I remember feeling a tiny bit of hope, even though I should not have. Maybe Barnaby had run away. Maybe he was gone. Maybe the whole thing would become one of those family stories people refuse to talk about. Then we pulled into the driveway. Stephen's mom was there. She had come to pick him up. Her car was parked by the curb, and she was standing on the porch, knocking on the front door. Nana hit the brakes. Through the living room window, I saw him. Barnaby stood on the mantel. He wore the black trench coat now, his wooden hand lifted in a stiff wave. His smile split wider than it had in the attic. "Nana," I whispered. The house exploded. A roar filled the world. The front of Nana's house burst outward in orange fire and black smoke. The blast threw me hard against the back seat. Glass rained across the driveway. Heat slapped through the car windows. Stephen screamed for his mother. For a second, I could not hear anything but ringing. Then everything became shouting. Nana stumbled out of the car. Stephen shoved the door open and ran toward the burning house. I followed, coughing, crying, barely able to see. Stephen's mother was alive somehow. She had been thrown off the porch and onto the grass. Her clothes were burned in places and blood ran down one side of her face. She was unconscious. Her body lay twisted in a way that made my stomach turn. Nana called 911. Stephen knelt beside his mother, saying her name again and again. I looked toward the burning house. For one moment, through the smoke near the broken front window, I saw Barnaby standing inside the flames. He was laughing. The ambulance came fast. So did the fire trucks and police. Everything after that blurred into flashing lights, smoke, adults shouting, and Stephen's face as they loaded his mother into the ambulance. Nana insisted we follow them to the hospital. She drove like she had forgotten fear existed. The hospital should have felt safe. It did not. By the time we arrived, something was wrong. The emergency entrance was too quiet. Hospitals are never truly silent. There are always voices, footsteps, machines, phones ringing, wheels squeaking. But as we walked in behind Nana, the hallway seemed dead. Then I heard dripping. At first, I thought it was water. It was blood. It was smeared across the linoleum in long, dark streaks. A nurse sat against the wall near the desk, shaking, her hands pressed over her mouth. A man in scrubs stumbled from a hallway with blood on his sleeve and a look on his face I still remember. Nana grabbed him. "What happened?" He stared past her. "A shadow," he whispered. "A little shadow in a trench coat. It moved too fast." Stephen started running toward the rooms. "Mom," Nana's phone buzzed. She pulled it from her purse with trembling fingers. The screen showed no number. She answered. A dry voice came through the speaker. "Hello, old woman." His voice clicked and rasped like dead leaves blowing over a grave. "I hitched a ride under the ambulance," he said. Come to room 304 or the woman dies. The call ended. Stephen was already moving before Nana could stop him. We found room 304 at the end of a hallway where the lights flickered badly. The door was half open. Inside, Stephen's mother lay in the hospital bed, pale and unconscious, tubes running from her arms. Barnaby sat on the edge of the mattress beside her. He held a silver scalpel against her throat. His eyes gleamed. The more I kill, he giggled. The more powerful I become, let her go. Barnaby tilted his head. Or what? I do not know why I moved. I was 11. I was scared enough that my legs felt like water. But I screamed as loudly as I could and ran toward the bed. Barnaby turned toward me. That was enough. Nana swung a heavy medical monitor from the side table with both hands. It crashed into Barnaby and knocked him off the bed. The scalpel flew from his hand and skidded across the floor. Stephen jumped on him. He pinned Barnaby's wooden arms down, teeth clenched, knuckles white. The dummy thrashed with impossible strength. His legs kicked. His jaw snapped open and shut, clicking wildly. His head twisted almost all the way around to look at me. I saw the scalpel near the wall. I grabbed it. Barnaby's eyes locked on mine. "You don't have the stomach," he hissed. Maybe I didn't, but I did it anyway. I drove the scalpel into his chest. The blade sank into the wood with a hard crack. Barnaby screamed, not like a toy, not like a man, like something being pulled backward into a place it hated. I twisted the scalpel. The wood splintered. A strange light flickered behind his eyes, bright and sickly yellow. His body jerked under Stephen's hands. Nana began praying loudly behind us, words tumbling from her mouth faster than I could understand. Barnaby's voice dropped into a wet whistle. "I'll be back when the two of you are all grown up," he hissed. His eyes dimmed. "You'll both be sorry one day." Then he went still. For a long time, none of us moved. Stephen was shaking. I was shaking too. Then he pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. We stayed like that on the hospital floor, surrounded by broken equipment, blood, and the body of a wooden thing that should never have been alive. We thought it was over. We wanted so badly to believe it was over. Nana took Barnaby's remains after that. I don't know where she put them. She never told us. She only said he would not trouble us again. Stephen's mother survived, though she was never the same. Nana's house was rebuilt in pieces, but the smell changed after the fire. The cinnamon and old lace were gone. Only smoke remained. Years passed. 12 years. By 2016, Stephen had graduated college. I was just about to start. We didn't talk about Barnaby often, but the memory sat between us whenever we were together. Sometimes one of us would mention that summer and the other would go quiet. We both knew what we meant. That day we were sitting in a small cafe talking about my freshman orientation. Stephen was teasing me about getting lost on campus. I was laughing, trying to pretend I wasn't nervous about leaving home. Then both of our phones rang at the exact same time. We stopped laughing. The caller ID was blank. Stephen looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us wanted to answer, but we did. "Hello?" we said together. For a second, there was only static. Then the voice came through, dry, rasping, clicking at the jaw. 12 years, Barnaby said. "Time to have some fun again, boys. Just like old times." The cafe disappeared around me. For one awful moment, I was 11 years old again, standing in Nana's attic, holding a yellowed card while a wooden thing opened its eyes. The time machine had finally caught up with us. Story 5. Me and my girlfriend have been together for 3 years. At least, that is what I thought. Lately, I have started to understand that the truth might be much worse than that. I remember the night we met so clearly that sometimes it feels fake. Like a scene from a movie I watched too many times until my brain decided it had happened to me. I know that sounds strange, but that is honestly how a lot of my memories with her feel now. Too smooth, too perfect, too arranged. It happened on my 21st birthday. My family had thrown a small get-together for me in my aunt's backyard. Nothing huge, just relatives, a few friends, some food, cheap drinks, and a live cover band my uncle knew from work. They mostly played Beatles songs because my dad had been obsessed with them since before I was born. I remember not wanting a party at first. I'm not really a center of attention type of person. But once everyone arrived, it actually felt nice. Warm string lights hung across the yard. People were laughing. My cousins were arguing near the grill. My mother kept telling everyone embarrassing stories about me as a kid. Then I saw her. She was standing near the edge of the yard, just outside the circle of light. I didn't recognize her. That should have bothered me. It was my birthday party. Everyone there should have been connected to me somehow. Family, friends, neighbors, coworkers. But I had no idea who she was. Still, I didn't question it. Not then. All I could focus on was her face. She was beautiful in a way that made me feel like my thoughts had gone quiet. Dark hair, soft eyes, a smile that looked like it had been waiting for me. She wore a pale summer dress, though I remember thinking it was a little old-fashioned, like something from a photograph someone's parents kept in a box. She looked directly at me. Then she smiled. And I forgot to wonder why she was there. I walked over like I had been pulled by a string. "Hi," I said. Smooth, very smooth. She laughed softly. "Hi. Do I know you?" She tilted her head a little, still smiling. "Not yet." I remember thinking that was cute. Now I think about it and feel sick. We talked for a while, though. I cannot remember most of what we said. That is another thing that bothers me. I remember the feeling of the conversation. I remember laughing. I remember the smell of her perfume, sweet and faintly floral. I remember the warmth in my chest every time she looked at me. But the words themselves are blurry, like my brain recorded everything except the parts that might have helped me later. When the band started playing something, she asked me to dance. Or maybe I asked her. I honestly do not know anymore. I only know that we danced. Everyone else seemed to fade away. No one interrupted us. No one joked about me finally talking to a girl. My mother did not come over with that smile she always got when she was trying not to make things awkward. Nobody seemed to notice her at all. It was just me and her moving slowly under the string lights while the sky above us turned dark and clear. The whole night felt like a fantasy. When the party started winding down and people began leaving, she stayed close to me. I remember my father clapping me on the back and saying, "Don't stay out too late," while looking directly past her like she was not even there. Again, I noticed it. Again, I ignored it. By then, ignoring things felt easy. She leaned close and whispered, "Can I come home with you?" I should have said no. I should have asked her name again. I should have asked how she knew me, who invited her, why nobody else had spoken to her the entire night. Instead, I smiled like an idiot. "Yeah," I said, "of course." We drove back to my apartment in my old car. Windows cracked because the AC barely worked. I tried to focus on the road, but she kept leaning toward me, whispering sweet little things into my ear. "You're exactly how I remembered. You look so grown up now. I waited so long for tonight." I laughed nervously at the last one. "What do you mean?" She touched my arm. "Nothing. Just happy." When we got to my apartment, it was not what some people might imagine. We did not stumble straight into the bedroom. We sat on the couch. I put on Supernatural because it was something easy. And she said she had always liked watching me watch it. I thought she meant she liked watching it with me. I thought I had misheard. We cuddled for hours, laughing at bad dialogue and old effects. She rested her head on my chest like she had done it 100 times before. It should have felt too familiar too fast. But it felt right. That is the thing about danger when it comes wrapped in comfort. You want to trust it. Eventually, I fell asleep with her in my arms. The next morning, I woke up alone on the couch. For a second, disappointment hit me. I thought she had left without saying goodbye, and I was already imagining myself turning the night into some sad little story about the girl who vanished after my birthday. Then I smelled breakfast. Eggs, coffee. I sat up slowly, still half asleep, and looked toward the kitchen. She was there, her hair was messy, and she was wearing one of my t-shirts. She stood barefoot at the stove, scrambling eggs like she lived there, like she knew where everything was. "Good morning, cutie," she said, glancing over her shoulder. My heart did something stupid. "I hope you don't mind," she continued. "I figured I'd make you breakfast. Consider it a thank you for letting me crash here last night." I should have asked how she knew where the pans were. I should have wondered when she had found the bacon. I should have questioned why my coffee maker was already running even though most people needed me to show them how to use it. Instead, I sat at the little table and stared as she placed a plate in front of me. Eggs and bacon, made exactly how I like them. "I have work," I said, because my brain was still slow and useless. "I know," not, "Oh, what time?" or "Sorry, I didn't realize." Just, "I know." But she was already moving quickly, gathering her things. "I don't want to be rude," she said, "but I have work too. I'll see you tonight." "Wait," I said. "I don't even have your—" The door closed behind her. I sat there with a fork in my hand, staring at the empty doorway. We had not exchanged numbers. I told myself I would find her somehow. Maybe ask my aunt who she was. Maybe check with my cousins. Maybe she was a friend of a friend. It felt a little strange, sure, but not frightening. Not yet. Around lunchtime, my phone started buzzing. I was at work, sitting at my desk, pretending to care about a ticket from someone who had somehow forgotten their password for the third time that month. The first text came from an unknown number. "How's your day going, honey?" I frowned. Then another came. "Working hard?" Then another. "What's for dinner tonight?" I stared at the screen. My stomach tightened. I typed, "Who is this?" The reply came immediately. "Don't be silly." Then a heart emoji. I looked around the office like someone might be watching me. My first thought was that it had to be her, the girl from last night. But we had never exchanged numbers. I had not given her my last name. I did not even remember telling her where I worked, though maybe I had. Like I said, pieces of that night were blurry. I tried to convince myself it was harmless. Maybe she had gotten my number from someone at the party. Still, something felt wrong. So much for love at first sight. For about 5 minutes, I actually felt relieved. Then my phone buzzed again. A new unknown number. "Haha, did you block me?" My mouth went dry. Another message followed. "You silly goose." Then another. "We're going to be together forever. You can't get rid of me that easily." My heart started pounding. I looked at the messages, then at the blocked number, then back at the new one. My hands felt cold. I did not want to be cruel. Even then, I was still trying to make sense of it in a normal way. Maybe she had attachment issues. Maybe she was being weird, but not dangerous. I typed carefully. "Look, I had a really good time last night. I just don't think this is going to work out. I wish you the best, and I hope you find the right person for you." The typing bubbles appeared. They stayed for a long time. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then the reply came. "We can discuss this when you get home." I stood up so fast my chair rolled back into the wall. Before I could respond, my boss walked past my desk and asked if I had finished the server access updates. I put my phone face down and tried to act normal. The rest of the day was torture. Every few minutes, another message came. "I chose you. We are going to be together forever. Don't you remember? I've always been here for you. You used to smile more. I liked your blue backpack. You cried when your dog died. Your mother sang to you when you had the fever." I stopped working. I just sat there staring at my phone, feeling something cold open in my chest. Then the pictures started. The first one was a selfie. She was smiling at the camera from the back row of my high school graduation. I almost dropped the phone. I zoomed in, hands shaking. There she was, Same face, same hair, same smile. She stood behind a group of parents and teachers, half hidden, looking directly into the camera. I remembered that day. I remembered sweating under my graduation gown. I remembered my dad taking pictures. I did not remember her. The next photo came before I could think. Me at the DMV, 16 years old, standing in line to get my license. She was behind me in the photo, wearing sunglasses, smiling at the camera. Then another. My 10th birthday party. I was blowing out candles at a kitchen table. My cousins were around me. My mother was clapping. My father was holding a camera in the reflection of the dark window behind us. She stood outside, smiling. I stood up and walked to the bathroom because I thought I was going to throw up. Another photo arrived. My first day of kindergarten. She was across the street, standing beside a tree. Another, a family trip to the beach when I was 7. She was in the background near the pier. Another, me as a toddler at the park. She was sitting on a bench behind my mother. Always the same, never older. Never younger, exactly the same face I had kissed the night before. Then came the photo that will stay with me until the day I die. It was taken in a hospital room. My mother lay in a bed, exhausted and pale, holding a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. Me. My father stood beside her, crying. A nurse was adjusting something near the bed, and in the background, just behind the door, was the girl. She wore a surgical mask under her chin. Her eyes were bright. She was smiling. She looked exactly the same. 21 years. Not one day older. I stared at the picture until my vision blurred. Then a new message appeared. We were meant to be. I left work early. I did not tell my boss why. I just grabbed my keys and walked out. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket the entire drive home. Don't be scared. I know this is a lot. I've waited so long. You looked so sweet when you were little. I always knew you'd grow into someone perfect. By the time I reached my apartment, I was shaking so hard I could barely unlock the door. Inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I checked every room, bedroom, bathroom, closet, kitchen. Nothing. I locked the door, pulled the chain, and shoved a chair under the handle, even though that only happens in movies and probably does nothing. Then I called my mother. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, birthday boy," she said. "Everything okay?" My throat tightened. "Mom, do you remember the girl from the party?" "What girl I was with all night?" There was a pause. "You weren't with anyone all night?" I closed my eyes. "Yes, I was." "No, honey," she said slowly. "You talked to your cousins. You danced a little with Aunt Lisa when the band played that song she likes. Then you mostly sat by the fire pit." "No," I whispered. "She was there. What's going on?" I hung up. Then I called my aunt. Same answer. Then my cousin. He laughed at first, thinking I was asking about some girl because I was embarrassed. When he realized I was serious, he told me he had not seen anyone like that. No one had. I opened my camera roll. There were pictures from the party, me with my parents, me cutting cake, me standing near the band, me by the fire pit. In every photo where I remembered her standing beside me, I was alone. But that could not be right. I remembered her hand in mine. I remembered her head on my shoulder. I remembered her laughing. Then my phone buzzed again. Pictures are funny, aren't they? Another message. They only keep what they're allowed to keep. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and landed on the carpet. The screen lit up again. You shouldn't have done that. Someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 soft taps. I did not move. Another knock. Then her voice came from the hallway. "Honey," my knees almost gave out. "I know you're upset," she said, "but we need to talk." I backed away from the door. "How did you get in the building?" I shouted. She laughed softly. Not mean, almost fond. I've always been good at getting close. I grabbed a kitchen knife. It looked ridiculous in my hand. The doorknob turned. The chain held. For a few seconds, there was only pressure against the door. Then she spoke again. "You don't need that. I would never hurt you. Go away. Silence. Then, you don't mean that. I do. When she spoke again, the softness had thinned. You loved me last night. That was before I knew you were insane. The hallway went completely quiet. Then she laughed. It was small, sad. You always say hurtful things when you're frightened. I frowned. Always. I looked down at the knife. How long have you been watching me? The answer came immediately. Since the beginning. My stomach twisted. Why? Because you're mine. I did not sleep that night. She stayed outside my door for hours. Sometimes she spoke. Sometimes she hummed Beatles songs from the party. Sometimes she whispered memories through the wood. You used to hide under the table when your parents fought. You thought nobody knew about the cigarettes behind the gym. You cried after prom because you thought nobody wanted you. I wanted you. At some point near sunrise, she left. I know because the pressure in the apartment changed. The air felt less crowded. I bought a new phone that morning. New number, new account, new everything. It did not help. The first message arrived before I even got home. That was rude. Then another. But I forgive you. Then another. Love means patience. I went to the police. They tried to take me seriously at first. I showed them the messages, the pictures. The threats, though she never technically threatened me, that was part of the problem. Everything she wrote sounded creepy, but not illegal enough in the way people want things to be illegal. They asked for her name. I realized I did not know it. Not really. The name she had given me at the party was Anna. Or maybe Emma. Or maybe I had only filled in a name because I needed her to have one. They asked how old she was. I said she looked 21 or 22. Then I showed them the delivery room photo. One officer stared at it for a long time and said it was probably edited. Maybe it was. Maybe all of them were. That was easier for them to believe. Easier for everyone. I filed a report. They told me to keep records and call if she appeared again. She did appear again. Not in the way I expected. A week later, I saw her through the window of a coffee shop while walking to work. She sat at a table near the back reading a book. When she noticed me, she smiled and lifted her hand in a small wave. I ran. 2 days after that, I saw her in the reflection of a dark store window behind me. When I turned around, she was gone. Then she appeared in a photo my coworker took during lunch. She stood behind us near the doorway, slightly blurred, smiling at me. My coworker swore nobody had been there. The worst part was the memories. After a while, new ones started appearing in my head, not dreams. I would be brushing my teeth and suddenly remember being 8 years old, lying sick in bed and seeing her sitting in the corner of my room. I would be driving and remember her face outside the school bus window when I was 12. I remembered being 16, heartbroken over some girl who rejected me and hearing someone whisper, "She wasn't right for you anyway." At first, I thought she had implanted those memories somehow. Now I am not sure. Maybe they were always there. Maybe my mind had hidden them because it could not survive knowing I was never alone. 3 years passed like that. That is the part I need to explain. Because when I say me and my girlfriend have been together for 3 years, I do not mean we dated normally. I mean, she never left. Eventually, fear became routine. That sounds impossible, but humans can get used to almost anything. At first, I called the police every time I saw her. Then only sometimes, then not at all. She came and went as she pleased. Sometimes she was sweet. She would leave food outside my door when I was sick. She would text reminders before appointments I forgot I had. She knew when I was sad before I told anyone. Sometimes I almost believed she loved me. Then she would say something that reminded me love had nothing to do with it. You should stop talking to Ryan. He takes too much of your attention. Your mother calls too often. You don't need friends who don't understand us. I can wait longer than they can. People drifted out of my life. not all at once, slowly. A missed call here, a canceled plan there, a message I never sent, but somehow everyone thought I had. Friends became distant. My mother started saying I seemed different. My father asked if I was in trouble. I said I was fine. What else could I say? An ageless woman who has been stalking me since birth wants to be my girlfriend and might be able to alter photographs, memories, and reality itself. Sure, that would go well. Last week, I found a box outside my apartment. No address, no shipping label. Inside was a photo album. The first picture was from the night of my 21st birthday, not the photos from my family's camera. This one showed us dancing. Me and her. Under the string lights, I stared at it for almost an hour. There I was, smiling like an idiot, holding her waist. There she was, looking at me like I was the only thing in the world. Behind us, every person at the party had their face turned away. Every single one. The next photo was from my high school graduation, then the DMV, then my 10th birthday, then kindergarten, then the hospital. Then, earlier, my mother pregnant, walking through a grocery store. My parents on their wedding day. My father as a young man, standing beside his first car. In every picture, she was there. Same face, same age, same smile. The final photo was black and white. Very old. A woman I did not know stood outside a farmhouse, holding a baby. Behind her, near the tree line, stood the girl. On the back of the photo, written in neat black ink, were 4 words. I waded through bloodlines. I have not left my apartment in 2 days. She is here now. Not inside. Not yet. She is on the other side of the door, humming that same Beatles song from my birthday party. She has been there for hours. Every now and then, she knocks gently and asks if I am done being dramatic. My phone keeps lighting up with messages. I chose you. I watched you grow. I loved every version of you. You belong with me. The last one came 5 minutes ago. You can't keep pretending this is new. That is what scares me most. Because part of me is starting to wonder if she is right. I keep remembering things. Her hand in mine when I was a child crossing the street. Her voice telling me not to cry after nightmares. Her face reflected in dark windows. Her smile in hospital glass. Maybe she has been with me my entire life. Maybe longer. Maybe love at first sight was never real. Maybe it only felt that way because some part of me recognized the thing that had been waiting beside my life since the day I was born. She just knocked again. Softly. Lovingly. "Honey," she said through the door. "Open up." I asked her what she is. For the first time, she did not answer right away. Then she laughed. That same beautiful laugh from my birthday party. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "I'm the one who was promised. I do not know who promised me. I do not know when. I do not know what happens if I open the door. But I am tired, so tired. And the worst part is, underneath all the fear, there is still a piece of me that wants to see her face again. That is how I know I may already be lost. Because even after everything, even after the pictures and the memories and the years of being watched, when she whispers that we were meant to be, some broken part of me still believes her. Story 6, the first dream was red. That is the only way I can describe it. Not red like fire or sunset or fresh paint. It was a deeper red, a wet red, the kind of color that belongs inside the body and should never be seen spread across the world. I stood beside a river that poured down the side of a mountain cliff. It did not flow like water. It moved thickly, dragging itself over stone in heavy waves, clotted and slow, as if the mountain itself had been wounded and was bleeding into the valley below. Far beyond the river, stretching toward the horizon, stood a forest. At first, I thought the trees were swaying in the wind, but there was no wind. The air was dead and still, yet the trees pulsed and leaned as if each one had a heartbeat of its own. Their trunks bent forward and back in a slow, sick rhythm. Their branches hung limp and soft, but the edges of those branches were sharp as razors, thin and black against the red sky. I did not understand what I was looking at. I did not have time to. A choir began to sing. The sound rose from the forest slowly at first, like something waking up beneath the earth. Then it grew louder, curling through the air and wrapping itself around my mind. It was beautiful in the same way a fever dream is beautiful. Wrong, but impossible to ignore. Every note seemed to slide under my skin. Beneath the singing were screams, thousands of them. The cries of the damned hidden under the melody like bones beneath a church floor. Faces began to appear inside the trees. They pushed out from the bark as if trapped beneath it, mouths stretched open, eyes rolled white, cheeks split by the grain of the wood. Some looked old, some looked less than human. Their mouths moved with the choir, though I could not tell if they were singing or begging to stop. I turned my head and saw a small shrub beside me. It trembled more violently than the trees. Its leaves twitched. Its thin branches curled inward and outward like fingers trying to grasp something. Then it began to sing. Its voice rose above the rest. I knew that voice. It was my son. My boy's voice came from that little twisted thing, clear and terrified, singing with the choir as if something had forced the song into him. I do not know if fear makes a man less of a man. I have asked myself that many times since. In that moment, I did not think of courage. I did not think of duty. I only wanted to run. My spirit moved before my body did. I felt myself lurch forward, desperate to escape the river, the forest, the singing, my son's voice trapped in that horrible shrub. But my feet did not follow. I looked down. My boots had sunk deep into the ground. Only then did I notice what I was standing in. It was not mud. It was red, wet, and soft, like rubber. It clung to my shoes with an iron grip, stretching and pulling when I tried to move. Veins twisted through it in thick, dark lines. Thin black hairs sprouted from the surface, waving gently though the air remained still. It looked almost like grass growing from flesh instead of soil. I pulled one leg with all my strength. The ground tightened. A wet, sucking sound came from beneath me. I screamed into the red world, my voice tearing out of me raw and useless. "Why have you forsaken me, Lord?" No answer came. Only the choir. Only my son's voice rising above it. Then the ground shifted. I fell forward, my face struck the riverbank, and I sank into a thick stream of chunky red. It filled my mouth before I could close it. Clots pressed against my lips, my teeth, my tongue. I tried to turn my head, but the substance pulled me deeper, soft and strong at the same time. The clots moved. They were alive. They pushed toward every opening in my face, my mouth, my nose, my ears, even the corners of my eyes. They pressed in with patient hunger, fighting to enter me, to fill my head, to silence every part of me that still belonged to myself. I choked on blood. It was warm and thick and full of soft pieces that slid down my throat no matter how hard I tried to spit them out. My body convulsed. My hands clawed at the ground, but the red earth held me fast. I tried to plead again, tried to pray, tried to call for my son, but no words escaped. Only gagging, only wet, broken sounds. Still, through the clots blocking my ears, I heard him, my son, crying, clear as truth, clearer than the world itself. Then I woke inside the bunker. I woke with my face pressed against the metal wall. My tongue was dragging across it. At first, I did not understand what I was doing. My mouth moved on its own, slow and deliberate, like a brush across a canvas. The metal was cold against my lips, bitter, rusted. The taste hit me all at once, and I jerked back in horror. The wall in front of me was smeared. Not with paint, with blood. And something darker, something foul. My own hand was pressed against the wall, fingers curled so tightly that my nails had split. My mouth burned. My tongue felt swollen and raw. I stumbled backward, wiping at my lips, trying not to vomit. Then I saw what I had made. Across the metal wall of the bunker, in uneven strokes of filth and blood, I had painted the same place from the dream. The riverside, the cliff, the forest in the distance, the crooked trees leaning as if they were listening. And beside the river, small but clear, was the shrub. Its branches were raised like arms. Its mouth was open. And beneath it, written in a shaky hand that I knew was mine, were 4 words I did not remember writing. He is still singing. Story 7. This is not just a story. It is a memory I have carried since I was 8 years old, and even now, all these years later, it has never settled properly in my mind. Some parts of it are sharp and clear, so clear they feel almost fresh. Other parts are blurred, like someone smeared a hand across them or cut pieces out before giving them back to me. It never felt like a normal childhood memory. It felt more like something I was allowed to remember only in pieces. I'm sharing it now because I have started to understand something I wish I never had to understand. What happened to me was not random. None of it was. When I was 8, I began waking up in different places around the house. Not every night, but often enough that it became part of my childhood in a way nobody seemed to question. I would fall asleep in my bed, tucked under my blanket, with my stuffed animals near my pillow and the hallway light glowing through the crack under my door. Then, in the morning, I would wake somewhere else. Sometimes I woke on the couch in the living room, curled up under no blanket at all, my cheek pressed against the scratchy fabric. Sometimes I woke on the hallway floor, lying on my side like I had simply been dropped there. Once, I woke sitting at the kitchen table, my head resting on my folded arms, as if I had been waiting for someone to come home. My bed would always be empty when I checked it. The sheets were cold, which meant I had been gone for a while. At first, I thought it was funny in a strange way. Kids accept weird things if adults act like they are normal. My mother always laughed it off and told me I was sleepwalking. "You've always done that, sweetheart," she would say while fixing my shirt or brushing dust from my hair. "Nothing to worry about." I believed her because she was my mother, and when you are 8 years old, your mother's voice can turn almost anything into truth. But there were things she could not explain. My clothes would be wrong, my shirt would be on backward, sometimes inside out. Once it was missing completely, and I woke up shivering on the living room floor with no memory of taking it off. Some mornings I had dirt under my fingernails even though we lived in an apartment and I had not played outside the day before. Other mornings I woke with a taste in my mouth like I had been sucking on coins. Metal. Bitter and cold. I never remembered walking. That was the part that bothered me even then. I had no memory of opening my bedroom door, no memory of passing through the hallway, no memory of climbing onto the couch or sitting at the table or lying down on the floor. It was like I closed my eyes in one place and opened them somewhere else. My mother said sleepwalkers usually did not remember. She said the mind did strange things while the body was asleep. Maybe that was true, but I was too young to wonder why it had started only after we moved into the old apartment. I was too young to ask why my mother looked nervous before she laughed. I was too young to notice how carefully she checked the locks every night, or how she sometimes stood outside my bedroom door after she thought I was asleep. Eventually, my mother saved enough money to move us out. She called it a fresh start. The new house had 2 stories, white siding, a little front porch, and a backyard that stretched all the way to the edge of the woods. It was not fancy, but to us it felt enormous. I had my own room upstairs, and my mother finally had enough space to put away the boxes she had carried from place to place for years. For the first few weeks, everything felt clean and safe. The strange nights stopped. I slept in my bed and woke in my bed. My clothes stayed on properly, no dirt under my nails, no metal taste in my mouth. My mother seemed happier, too. She smiled more. She opened the curtains in the morning and let sunlight fill the house. For a little while, I thought whatever had followed us in the apartment had stayed there. Then, one night, I woke to knocking at my bedroom window. My room was on the 2nd floor. At first, I thought I had dreamed it. I lay still in bed, listening. The house was quiet. The trees outside shifted in the dark, but there was no wind strong enough to move a branch against the glass. Then it came again. 3 slow taps. Knock, knock, knock. It was not the sound of a branch. It was too careful for that, too patient. Each tap landed with the same amount of pressure, like whoever was outside had all the time in the world. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and stared at the window. The curtains were closed, but I could see the faint shape of the glass behind them. The room was dark except for a strip of light from the hallway under my door. I wanted to call for my mother, but something inside me told me not to speak. Then I heard my name, Joshua. The voice was low and wet, almost gurgling, like the words were being pushed through a throat full of water. But it said my name clearly, not whispered, spoken, the way an adult speaks to a child they already know. The way someone who has watched you for a long time finally speaks when they are done waiting. I froze. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Then the voice, Joshua. I pulled the blanket over my head and pressed my hands against my ears, but it didn't help. The sound found its way in anyway. I heard footsteps outside, soft and careful, moving across the roof near my window. Then the sound seemed to move inside the walls, then inside my head. After a while, I could no longer tell the difference. The next thing I remember is waking up in the forest. It was still night. Not the kind of night where the moon makes everything silver and soft. This was deep night, the kind where the trees seem to swallow whatever light tries to touch them. Every shadow felt personal, as if it had been waiting for me by name. I was barefoot. The ground was cold and damp under my feet. Leaves stuck to my soles, small stones pressed into my skin. My pajamas were not mine. They were much too big, with sleeves hanging past my hands and pants bunched around my ankles. The fabric smelled awful, old sweat, sour breath, something metallic underneath it all, like dried blood. I stood there shaking, trying to understand where I was. The woods behind our house were large, but I had never gone deep into them. My mother always warned me not to. During the day, they looked normal from the yard, just rows of trees and patches of weeds. But at night, they felt endless. I reached into the left pocket of the oversized pajama pants and felt something there. A small stack of photographs. My fingers were numb as I pulled them out. They were pictures of me. The first few showed me as a toddler playing in a yard I didn't recognize. I was holding a plastic shovel in one picture. In another, I was sitting on a blanket beside a woman whose face had been scratched out with something sharp. The next pictures were more recent. Me riding my bike in front of our new house. Me asleep in my bed, photographed through my bedroom window. That one made my stomach twist because it was taken from inside my room. I could tell by the angle the photo had been taken from near my closet, looking toward my bed while I slept. Another showed me sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal, my back turned to the camera. Then the pictures became wrong. There was one of me at 10 years old. At least, I think I was 10 in the picture. My face was older, my body taller, my hair cut differently. But I was only 8. Another showed me at 13, standing outside a school I had never seen before. The last photo showed me as an adult. I was standing in a doorway I did not recognize, looking back over my shoulder with wide, terrified eyes. I looked like I had just heard something behind me, something I could not escape. All the pictures were in full color, clear, bright, real. My mother did not own a color printer. She still doesn't. Or she didn't. I started walking because staying still felt worse. The trees all looked the same. Thin trunks, heavy shadows. Branches twisted overhead like fingers. No matter which direction I chose, the path seemed to curve back on itself. Sometimes I passed a fallen log and then saw what looked like the same log again minutes later. The woods felt like they were tightening around me, slowly closing like a throat. I called for my mother once, only once. The sound of my voice seemed too loud, and the silence that answered felt too aware. After what felt like hours, I heard water. A small creek cut through the woods ahead of me, narrow and dark with moonlight trembling on the surface. Beside it stood a woman. At first, relief flooded through me. It was Miss Harriet. She had been our neighbor back at the old apartment complex. She was kind, or at least I had always thought she was. She gave me hard candies from a little glass bowl and let me watch cartoons in her living room when my mother worked late. She smelled like powder and tea, and she wore sweaters even when it wasn't cold. She stood by the creek smiling at me with the same gentle smile I remembered. "Come on, sweetheart," she said, waving me closer. "You'll be safe if you cross the water. Just come to me." It looked like Miss Harriet. The face was right. The little mole on her cheek was right. Even the way her hair curled around her ears was right. But the voice was wrong. It sounded like it was being pushed through a throat that did not fit human speech. The words were clear, but there was something rough underneath them. Something wet. Something pretending. Then I smelled her. Rotten fruit left too long in the sun, and under that, something deeper. Meat gone bad. I stepped back. "I can't swim," I said. Miss Harriet kept smiling. Her eyes did not move, not even to blink. "It's not deep," she said. "Just a few steps. Come on, I have a gift for you." Her fingers curled toward me. They were too long. I stared at the creek. It was narrow enough that an adult could cross it easily, but to me it looked bottomless. The water moved slowly, too slowly, almost like black oil sliding over stones. I took one hesitant step forward. Then the night exploded around me. Footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Some sounded close enough to be right behind me. Others came from far away, echoing between the trees. There were too many of them to belong to one person. Voices followed. Some whispered my name. Some screamed it. Some laughed in a wet, choking way that made my skin crawl. I stepped back from the creek. Miss Harriet's smile did not change. "Don't walk away, Joshua," she said. "I'm here for you. I'm always here." On the last words, her voice changed. It dropped lower, became rougher, warmer, and then it sounded exactly like my father. I had never met my father. He died before I was born. I only knew his voice from a few old videos my mother kept hidden in a box, but sometimes played when she thought I was asleep. But I knew it. I knew that voice. "Joshua," he said from Miss Harriet's mouth. "Come here, son." My legs went weak. "It's all right," he said. "Cross the creek. I just want to hold you." It could not be my father. I knew that. Even at 8 years old, I knew dead people did not stand in the woods wearing an old neighbor's face. But hearing his voice did something to me. It reached into a place I did not know how to protect. It sounded kind, sad, hopeful. He told me he had missed me. He told me he had waited so long. He said there were things he wanted to show me, things I had forgotten, things that had not happened yet. He spoke of futures that would never come, and memories that were not mine. The voices in the trees grew louder. The thing by the creek held out both arms. "Come on, son," my father's voice said. "Just a few steps." Then I heard frantic running through the brush. Real running. Human running. Branches snapped. Leaves tore. Someone crashed through the darkness toward me, breathing hard. My mother burst through the trees and wrapped her arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. She was crying. I started crying too. For one moment, the forest lost its power. The voices stopped. The footsteps disappeared. The thing by the creek was gone. My mother carried me home. I remember her body shaking as she held me. I remember her whispering, "I found you. I found you. I found you," over and over like she was trying to convince herself. By the time we reached the house, dawn was beginning to soften the sky. She told me I had been sleepwalking again. I tried to tell her about the window, the knocking, the photographs, Miss Harriet by the creek, my father's voice. She didn't believe me. Or maybe she did, and that was worse. Each time I brought it up, she told me I had been dreaming. She said fear made dreams feel real. She said I must have wandered outside in my sleep, and my mind created the rest. She never explained the pajamas, She never explained the dirt on my feet. She never explained how she knew where to find me. So eventually, I stopped talking about it. Years passed. We moved again when I was older. The sleepwalking faded. The photographs disappeared from the drawer where I had hidden them. My mother said I must have misplaced them. I knew I hadn't. But by then, I had learned that asking questions only made her quiet. For a long time, I let myself believe it was over. Then my mother died last week. It was sudden, and I am still not ready to talk about it. I have spent the last few days in her house going through old boxes, paperwork, clothes, all the pieces of a life that suddenly becomes an inventory after death. Last night, I slept in my old room for the first time in years. I woke just after 3 in the morning. Knock, knock, knock. I opened my eyes. Silence. Then again. Knock, knock, knock. My body remembered before my mind did. I became 8 years old again in an instant, frozen under the blanket, listening to the dark. Then I heard my mother's voice outside the glass. Joshua. The way she spoke when she wanted me to stop being afraid. I did not move. The voice came again. Sweetheart, let me in. The curtains hung still, but I could see the faintest shape behind them. Something waiting there, just outside the glass. My mother had been buried a week ago. I know what grief can do. I know it can bend sounds and memories. I know it can make you hear what you want most. But I also know what I heard. 3 taps. Silence. 3 more. And then my mother's voice speaking to me from outside a second-floor window with something wet and patient breathing underneath every word.